In the first video, we worked on adding decimals, and we talked about lining up the decimals is really, really important. In the second part, we're going to open up and work on subtracting, and the same thing is true that we always have to line up our decimal points. When we add or subtract decimals, we must line up the decimal points. And so on this very first problem, we've got 5 and 34 hundredths minus 2 and 8 hundredths. Our estimate is about 5 minus 2, so our estimate is going to be about 3. Now I'm going to find the exact answer, and I'm going to do that by lining up my decimals. 5 and 34 hundredths minus 2 and 8 tenths. Notice my decimal points fall on a line here. I can't do 4 minus 8, so I'm going to have to borrow. 14 minus 8 is 6. My 3 became a 2, and 2 minus 0 is 2. And 5 minus 2 is 3. So when I subtract 5 and 34 hundredths minus 2 and 8 hundredths, my answer here, my exact answer is 3 and 26 hundredths. That's very similar to my estimate of 3, so my answer seems reasonable and makes sense for me to go to the next problem. And so at this point in time, I'm going to come down to this next one. And when we see subtraction with integers, subtraction with negatives, we know that we're going to use the 3 C's to copy, change, change. So I'm going to do that even before I estimate. I'm going to copy, change, change. So copy the first number, change the subtract to add, change negative to positive. And now if I'm adding, this is about 13 plus about 19. And so my estimated answer is about 32. When I go to, now I'm adding both positive numbers, so I just have to add and line up my decimal points. 13 and 2 tenths plus 19 and 17 hundredths. Notice that my decimal points are lined up, and I can add a 0 in my hundredth spot here so that I have a placeholder and it doesn't change the value of my number. 0 plus 7 is 7. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 9 is 12, carry my 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. And so my exact answer here is 32 and 37 hundredths. That's very similar to my estimated answer of 32, so I feel like my answer seems reasonable and makes sense for me to carry on and move on to the next problem. At this point, I would challenge you to try these next two on your own, and then and pause the video, and then unpause the video to check your work. So for this first problem, this is about 16 minus 28. I know that when I'm subtracting integers like this, and I've got a smaller first number that I have to copy, change, change. And so I've got 16 plus negative 28. And same signs add and keep when they are different signs, though we subtract. 28 minus 16 is 12. And I keep the sign of the higher number, which is negative. And so my estimate is about negative 12. My actual answer, I'm going to have to do the same thing. 15 and 911 thousandths minus 28. I'm going to have to copy, change, change right away. And when I do that, I have different signs. I've got a negative and a positive. So I'm going to subtract the bigger number, 28, minus 15 and 911 thousandths. And when I subtract, remember that we have to line up our decimals, and the decimal on the 28 is after the 8. The 8 is in the ones place. And so I'm going to add my zeros here to do my subtraction. So I can't do 0 minus 1, so I'm going to have to borrow from here, borrow from here, borrow from here. This is now a 7. This 10 got borrowed from and became a 9. This 10 got borrowed from and became a 9, but made this last 0 a 10. So 10 minus 1 is 9. 9 minus 1 is 8. 9 minus 9 is 0. Line up my decimals. 7 minus 5 is 2. And 2 minus 1 is 1. And then I have to come back and ask myself what kind of sign should it have. This is where my estimate could help me. I had more negatives than positives. Negative 28, that has a higher greater absolute value than 15 and 911 thousandths. And so this answer is going to be negative 12 and 89 tenths hundredths thousandths. Sorry, negative 12 and 89 thousandths. very close to my estimate, so I'm good to go. On this last one, again, we had to use copy, change. So we copy the first number and change the next two, the symbol and the operation in the symbol. So now I have two negatives. When I have the same sign, I add and keep. And so this is about -2 plus about -3. So my estimate is about -5. Same signs, add and keep. So on these two, I'm going to line up my decimal points, 1 74/100 and 3 2/10, and I'm actually going to add the two. 4 minus 0 is 4. 7 minus 2 is 9. Bring my decimal point down, and 1 plus 3 is 4. And so now I'm just asking myself, what kind of sign do I have? Well, same signs, add and keep. These are both negatives. So my answer has to be -4 and 94/100. That seems very close to -5, and it seems like a reasonable answer because of my estimate. So I know that I'm good to go. The biggest thing to remember when we're adding and subtracting is that we have to line up our decimals. It's super duper important that we line up our decimals whether we're adding or subtracting. And then when we're adding and subtracting decimals, we have to use those same integer rules that we learned last time. When we see subtraction, we can use copy, change, the 3 C's, to get us through. And then we can use our adding rules, same signs, add and keep, different signs, subtract, keep the sign of the higher number, then you'll be exact. And so we're going to be using all those things that we've learned so far about integer rules and about decimals and put it all together here at the very end. Now we're going to do some problem solving where we have to decide, add or subtract, and use all of those rules and things that we've learned on this first set of notes.